From ancient times, across every corner of the globe, cultures have passed down chilling stories, tales of sinister beings that emerge after dark, creatures born of darkness, said to stalk quiet roads and deserted paths with evil intent. The Philippines, with its tranquil islands and vibrant traditions, is no stranger to such legends. Here, fear wears a name whispered in dread: Aswang. Nestled in the heart of Western Negros, Bargo City stands as one of the earliest settlements in the Philippines. Its residents have known suffering and survival, from the Spanish occupation to the ravages of war. But on a stifling March evening in 2013, a different kind of terror took hold. The heat pressed down on the city like a curse, forcing people to fling their windows wide open, hoping for the faintest breeze. Among them was Andre Pineda, lying on his bed, restless, drenched in sweat, and frustrated by the suffocating air. A sudden loud crash from the kitchen shattered the silence. At first, Andre dismissed it, perhaps something knocked over by the wind. But then came another noise, this time more deliberate, more sinister. Driven by annoyance, Andre stormed toward the kitchen. Under the dim glow of the streetlights leaking through the open window, he saw a dark form dragging itself inside. Startled and furious, he reached for a kitchen knife and lunged. The intruder dodged far too quickly and struck back. A sharp pain slashed through Andre's arm, forcing him to drop the blade. He caught a glimpse of something unnatural. Claws, fangs, and most disturbingly, eyes like glowing blood-red coals. Emotionless, soulless, terrifying. The creature disappeared in a blur, scaling rooftops with impossible agility. Andre, still bleeding and trembling, stood in disbelief. He had heard stories of such monsters his entire life, Aswang tales told to frighten children. But now one had broken into his home, and it was very, very real. Elsewhere in Bargo City that same night, a young girl was pulled from sleep by an eerie sensation. As her eyes adjusted, she realized with horror she was being dragged from her bed by a bony, clawed hand gripping her ankle. Her screams brought her father rushing in. He arrived just in time to see a long arm retreat through the window and vanish into the night. The next morning, the girl awoke with excruciating pain in her abdomen. She could barely eat or breathe. A local albulario, a traditional Filipino healer, was summoned. His verdict: she had been touched by an aswang. The damage wasn't just physical, it had scarred her very soul. Word of the two incidents raced through Bargo like wildfire. Panic turned to fury. The following evening, locals armed themselves with knives, bats, even makeshift spears. Multiple sightings were reported, of shadowy figures leaping across rooftops, narrowly escaping the angry crowds. After several tense nights, things seemed to calm. But the unease lingered. This wasn't the first time such stories had emerged. In October 2014, the town of Turn Arwin faced a similar crisis. Reports of aswangs roaming the streets reached such levels that military forces were deployed to reassure terrified civilians. In Colombia, April 2015 brought strange rumors. 2 American soldiers injured and driven off by locals after allegedly attacking children, believed by villagers to be aswangs in disguise. The term aswang covers a range of terrifying entities in Filipino folklore. Some resemble ghouls that feast on the dead, while others take the form of witches that prey on infants and pregnant women, using elongated tongues to extract blood and organs. The most infamous variant is the shape-shifting predator, by day an ordinary human, a colleague, a neighbor, even a family member. But when night falls, it transforms into a horrific predator driven by bloodlust. These creatures can mimic sounds, animal cries, or familiar voices to lure their victims into isolation. They can become birds or household pets, gaining access to homes before striking with fury and speed. Once satisfied, they return to their human form before dawn, seamlessly blending back into society. Legends say a person can become an aswang by tying a fertilized chicken egg to their stomach while sleeping. Overnight, the chick is said to burrow into their belly, awakening a hunger that only human flesh can satisfy. The curse is transferable. An aswang may open its mouth, allowing the chick to crawl into the victim's throat, infecting them with the same dark hunger. A married couple in North Cotabato woke one night to sounds coming from their living room. The husband, keeping a boelo, a local short sword, at his bedside, rushed down to confront the intruder. He found a massive black dog, its eyes glowing red with malevolence. As he swung the weapon, the creature darted away, bit his arm, and vanished into thin air. 3 nights later, a nearby house was attacked by what witnesses described as a giant feline, which morphed into a humanoid figure before escaping through a window, injuring 4 people in the process. In Lucena City, September 2014, several children were ambushed by a giant bird-like creature while walking home at night. In one encounter, a resident injured the entity's foot. Days later, a suspected elderly woman was discovered missing multiple toes on the same foot. When detained, she denied everything, then allegedly warned police that if not released, she would target their own children. She was freed and disappeared into the jungle. She was never seen again. The Aswang's traits eerily mirror European vampire myths, particularly from southeastern Europe. Similar legends exist in Africa, like the Impundulu, a vampiric bird that feeds on young women. How could so many cultures, isolated by oceans and continents, share such similar beings? On June 2, 2015, a 10-year-old girl in Devo del Norte was found dead in her bedroom. Her throat had been torn open by an unseen attacker. The room was sealed except for a single open window. That same month, Cotabato City was buzzing with reports. Photos, videos, and eyewitness accounts flooded social media, describing bird-like monsters prowling the streets at night. A local priest heard confession from a fisherman, whose face was shredded with fresh wounds. He claimed he awoke to find a creature perched on his chest, slashing at him before vanishing into the air. Even in one of Asia's most devout Christian nations, the fear of the Aswang is very real and sometimes deadly. In 2015, a man in Turn Arwin fired his gun into the ceiling, believing something was crawling on the roof. He accidentally killed his teenage daughter, who was sneaking back home after a party. A year earlier in Bacolod City, 2 elderly residents were stoned and beheaded by mobs who believed they were Aswangs. The accusations? Based solely on superstition. Scholars believe the Aswang myth was manipulated and weaponized by the Spanish in the 1600s. Facing rebellion and poor infrastructure, colonizers spread tales of jungle demons to keep locals indoors at night. By portraying the Aswang as female, they vilified the women who were resisting occupation while their men were imprisoned, labeling them as witches or monsters. Even tribal healers and shamans were discredited to make way for Christian doctors and churches. Disturbingly, there are rumors that after World War II, the CIA tried to revive the Aswang legend to suppress rebel forces. Allegedly, agents murdered civilians and mutilated their corpses, mimicking monster attacks to sow terror. In central Philippines, where most Aswang sightings are recorded, a rare condition called X-linked dystonia Parkinsonism, XDP, exists. Sufferers experience uncontrollable, grotesque body movements. Although victims are conscious, they can't explain or stop the contortions. This has led to them being mistaken for possessed or even accused of being Aswangs themselves. The Philippines, with over 7,600 islands, is home to bizarre and rare animals. Giant flying foxes, feral cats, and stray dogs, some unusually large, often trigger false sightings. Desperation and hunger sometimes push these animals into human spaces, leading to attacks that fuel the myth. The Aswang is just one creature in the Philippines' dark mythos. Others include the Tiyanak, a creature that appears as a baby, crying helplessly, only to attack those who approach. The Tikbalang, a half-horse, half-man demon that leads travelers astray in the forests, only to trample them to death. Despite centuries of colonization, modernization, and science, belief in the Aswang remains deeply entrenched in Filipino consciousness. Its story has endured, evolving through generations, feeding off fear, tragedy, and the unexplained. Perhaps someday we'll discover the truth. Until then, lock your windows, and sleep lightly because the Aswang may still be watching.